I'm curious, just to start out, when Caitlin Clark got onto your radar and at what point you decided that you were going to write a book.
Two different time periods for that, for sure. And the first one was, like a lot of people, I was drawn to Caitlin Clark by an incredible Logo 3. And that was the junior year for her, that February game, Indiana and Iowa. And it was the last second buzzer beater, and she's kind of sideways and her legs are askew, and the ball goes in and she goes crazy, and the crowd goes crazy, of course, at Carver Hawkeye. And she runs over to the end zone area, and the team comes up, and it's just, I'm watching in my kitchen on my iPad. Actually was just kind of keeping an eye on the Indiana team. They were number 2 in the country, and I went to Northwestern, but all my siblings went to went to Indiana. So I'm a journalist, but I'm just watching for fun. And, I watched this and I've watched the replays. Like, what have I just seen? And I'm very lucky. I've covered a lot over the years. I've covered a lot of Olympics, Super Bowls. I'm very, very fortunate. And yet I still found myself saying, where did I seen this before? It maybe never, to see a female basketball player be this, not only a basketball player, but being this much of an entertainer. There was something about this that you just kind of couldn't take your eyes off it, watching the replays. My siblings, as we were texting, my nieces, same thing. Like, okay, they lost, Indiana lost, but like, what was that? And it was the athlete who is much more than an athlete, the athlete who truly is an entertainer. And so that was then. Now, I had heard about her before. I was at the Olympics in Beijing when she had that monster game against Michigan. But in general, I knew about her a little bit, but I really wasn't covering women's basketball as much. I have for decades, but focused on the Olympic Games and the 2 games within 6-8 months because of COVID. And, one thing led to another. Anyway, so then move ahead, and I'm covering the Olympic swimming trials in Indianapolis. And I get a chance. My editors say, would you go over and write a couple columns on the fever games, the 2 games that are going on while the Olympic swimming trials are going on? So if the Olympic swimming trials last year are not in Indianapolis, I don't meet Caitlin Clark, I don't think, and certainly not that way, and get a chance to talk for a few minutes is what we did off the record. This is well before I'm writing a book, but just a, hello, and that firm handshake. She looks you in the eye. As I say in the book, 22 going on 40 or 50. So mature, but also so fun and interesting. So anyway, did that, left Indy, came back home to DC, gearing up for the Paris Olympics. And I was having a conversation with an editor at Scribner. I've written 3 books for them before. And we start talking about Caitlin Clark. And he says he'll get back to me. I thought, Mom, maybe in a few weeks. I'm going to the Olympics, whatever. Next day, phone rings. And my editor at Scribner, Rick Horgan, says, I want to offer you a contract right now to write a Caitlin Clark book. No book proposal, sight unseen. And that never happens. And at that point, I then was writing a Caitlin Clark book. And I called her agent. I got in touch, texted and called her agent, Erin Kane, within a couple of days. And then, obviously told the Fever, leadership at the Fever. And then as soon as the Olympics were over and I got back here, I went right to Indy and I followed the team, was in some practices, exclusive access to practices, and had an opportunity to ask Caitlin Clark any questions I wanted to, usually in small press availabilities or just a few of us. And nothing was off limits. She answered everyone. Of course she did. She is terrific. And handles herself so much better than athletes twice her age who I've covered, who get angry or mad or pout. She just is just an incredible trooper and an incredible person. And again, nothing was off limits. And she's just so calm and confident and composed. It's amazing to see. And so that's how it happened. Serendipity. And I'm very thrilled and honored to be able to have this book coming out now.
Can you talk to me about how this compares to, like you said, you've covered a lot of things in your career, the biggest sporting events out there. How has the Caitlin Clark phenomenon compared to anything else you've covered in your career?
The closest comparison that I have been able to come up with is Tiger Woods. I covered Tiger for the length of his career, and how fortunate I was to get a chance to have a front row seat for that. And in doing so, obviously, I watched very closely the fascination with him, tried to figure out, in addition to his great play, but why the TV ratings were skyrocketing. Of course, men's golf had already had Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, and even going back to people like Sam Snead and Byron Nelson, Bobby Jones. So men's golf had already reached a plateau of interest in the country, had great sponsors, obviously financial companies, car companies, high-end sponsors. So Tiger, though, took it to a whole new level. And what was it? Well, it was grandmothers who wouldn't know the difference between a birdie and a bogey rearranging their Sunday afternoons for Tiger's tee time at the Masters in the final round. And that's it. That's why those numbers, he transcended sports and was a part of our culture. And it was a singular athlete hitting those amazing shots, walking down the fairway. So that's the Tiger fascination. And that's the closest I can come to this fascination, the nation just falling in love with what we've created because of Title IX, the law 53 years ago. Iowa, 6-on-6 girls basketball. I go into all of that as well. What happened to Dr. Christine Grant? I know I interviewed her. Obviously, she's passed away now. That story, all of these things that built Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark stands on the shoulders of so many wonderful Iowa girls and women who played 6-on-6 girl basketball, who played in college. People like Lisa Bluter and Jan Jensen, obviously her coaches, but also superstars in Iowa's girls basketball and then women's basketball in college, and many, many, many others. And so, that I started to think, well, when I'm watching Caitlin Clark, hit it, throw up threes from the parking lot, and they're going in. And the crowd and the noise, the sound of anticipation in the crowd. I didn't cover any games in Iowa, cover Hawkeye, I'm sorry to say it, because again, I didn't have a book until July 11th of 2024. So obviously she was already in the pros. And, but I was well aware, and I knew the storyline, Title IX, all of the things that go into that story. I give speeches around the country on those subjects. I've written a father-daughter memoir that deals with so much about Title IX and our daughters and growing up in sports the way boys did for generations now. Of course, girls do as well. Thanks to this law, the 1990 Women's World Cup soccer team, how that explosion led to 2.5 years later, a little girl is born in Iowa. And that is exactly the kind of mindset and cultural phenomenon that we have in this country in terms of that Title IX and girls and women's sports is just so important now in the country. So throw all that in the mix. Caitlin Clark is an entertainer. Tiger Woods was an entertainer. Big difference right now is that, of course, Tiger at the end of his career, 15 majors, long career, he's turning 50. Caitlin Clark is still 23. She's just starting. So I'm not saying she is Tiger Woods. What I'm saying is the fascination, the interest, the guys who would have been laughing at women's basketball 20 years ago. And I know those guys because I did radio shows where they'd call in and make fun of me for promoting women's basketball, talking about it here in the DC area or wherever. It was a big, big laugh riot to make fun of women playing basketball. They're just rolling around on the floor. It's only jump balls. Those things were said to me. And I would persevere, as of course I would, and continue to talk about how great female athletes are. But that was the feeling. Well, those same guys, now 20, 30 years older, they're the ones wearing the number 22 jerseys, not just to Indiana Fever games, but to the grocery store and to the gas station. What a change in this country. And Caitlin Clark is more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, because men's golf had already had, as I said, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, some big names. They had the sponsors. The WNBA was given short shrift for more than a generation by the male-dominated mainstream sports media. Yeah. And that's a fact. And along comes Caitlin Clark, and she brings it up to a level it should have been at for many years before. And great star players like Maya Moore, her hero, and others that never got that cross-cultural transcendent attention that Caitlin Clark has. But the moment is here now, and it is happening now, and that spotlight shines on so many others. So that similarity with Tiger Woods, I think, definitely exists. And I think it's really, relatable to so many sports fans who remember Tiger's heyday and now are seeing it in the magical play of Caitlin Clark.
Did you ever think you would see a day where the must-see TV star in sports is a woman?
I never thought I would live to see the day that people would stand in line in Big Ten cities and going into huge arenas on January, February nights in the cold, in the North, in the Big Ten. They'd stand in line for hours to get in to the arena to watch a woman play basketball. I never thought I would see that day. And even as I just said that sentence, I almost cannot believe I just said it. And of course, that was happening, and everyone in Des Moines, everyone in Iowa knows that. But around the Big Ten, around the country, wherever Iowa was playing, wherever Caitlin Clark was playing, pretty much from, her entire junior year and senior year, certainly, and maybe even going back to that Michigan game, that incredible performance in the fourth quarter in Ann Arbor, which was in February of 2022. And that's when the highlight reel, social media, the ability to see these shots over and over again, that really, we cannot minimize the meaning of social media. All the fun the Iowa women's team was having on social media, we get to know them. You feel like you know them when they're laughing in the locker room, or you see their practices or whatever. Caitlin's incredible performances, obviously junior year, going all the way to the final game, and nearly 10 million viewers for that game against Iowa losing to LSU, of course. And then the next year, of course, the crossover at Kinnick, 55,000, the biggest crowd in women's basketball history, obviously outside in the Iowa football stadium for that moment, the pictures and every scene. I watched it on TV. And then, of course, there's a picture in my book of that moment. It's just unbelievable. It's breathtaking to see the crowd. And so many people who are watching this, of course, were there to support the women's basketball team and Caitlin Clark and Lisa Bluter. And anyway, and then on and on it goes. So without a doubt, never thought I'd see the day. And that's certainly one of the reasons I wrote this book, because as I've spoken around the country, as I've written columns, as I've talked on television over the years about women's sports, about Title IX, the Olympics, where U.S. women are the leaders in gold medals. If the U.S. women were their own country at various Olympic games, really the last 4 Summer Olympics, Paris, and then going backwards, if the U.S. women were their own country, they would be in Paris 3rd in the medal count, but behind the full U.S. team, and then behind China. I mean, that's how strong our female athletes are because of Title IX. If there's no Title IX, we don't have a U.S. women's soccer team. If there's no Title IX, Katie Ledecky would have had to retire and move on, probably, maybe after 1 or 2 Olympics. That's what happened in previous generations with great women's swimmers. There were no college programs to go to. So all these things are part and parcel of the same conversation. But here, for women's team sport, everything I've just talked about is individual athletes, swimmers, gymnasts like Simone Biles, tennis players, obviously Serena and Venus, amazing, going all the way back to Chris Evert and Billie Jean King. But our women's sports stars were individual athletes by and large. Until the 1999 Women's World Cup, 90,000 in the Rose Bowl cheering on a women's soccer team. But even that team, then there was no pro league yet. So they kind of went away till the next Olympics, like 14 months. And here comes Caitlin Clark in a team sport, but such an individual star in that team sport. Mm-hmm. And of course, from the time that Iowa made it to the finals, and then of course lost to South Carolina, to the time she was drafted in the WNBA, that wasn't 14 months like the women's soccer team back in 99 and 2000. That was 8 days. Caitlin Clark was gone for 8 days, during which time she appeared on Saturday Night Live. So again, we couldn't miss her because she never left. And that's part of the same conversation. But yes, all of it, the stars aligned, everything worked out. But first and foremost, it's the talent of Caitlin Clark. It's the high wire act that she loves and that people love about her. It's her feistiness, it's her personality, it's her sense of humor, it's her intelligence, so smart, so on top of her game in every way. And just also the role model she is, signing all those autographs for girls and boys before games, after games. Extraordinary person to come along at the exact right time.
For you, how unique was it just getting to know her and just how she carries herself through all of this craziness that is hard for even older pro athletes to handle, but for someone of her age to handle this rapid stardom, that was probably jarring for you to see, like, just how does she do this?
Having covered so many athletes, especially male athletes who throw a fit or get angry or want to leave after 2 questions, Tiger Woods just kind of mumbling and wanting to get out of there, not receptive at all. Tiger was never wanting to sign autographs for kids, keeping his head down. and just playing golf, which was, of course, his right. The comparison is just striking. And Caitlin Clark just exceeds all expectations. For those who haven't met her, and I'm guessing most people in Iowa have or feel like they have, or they know her. But if you haven't met her and talked to her, she's better than you'd hope for. I mean, as a journalist, I've been lucky to cover a lot of things over 40 years. And she is one of the most impressive people I have met in sports over a 40 plus year career. And, you know, the way everything was thrown at her, especially last year, you know, the Kennedy Carter hit. And then I think a lot of people don't realize this, but with the book, there's a whole chapter called Hip Check on that moment and everything around it, including Angel Reese standing up quickly and applauding the hip check, which I've got Tamika Catchings in the book talking about how that's just such a bad look for Angel Reese. I've got Billie Jean King talking about the players, you know, don't blow it. This is your moment. Like Chris Evert was for tennis, that Caitlin Clark is for basketball. That's the voice of Billie Jean King. Get so many voices, Black people, white people, experts, people who are just exactly the kind of important voices and figures that you want in a book that, you know, you hope you capture this moment, this incredible moment, not just in sports, but in American cultural history. And yeah, you know, I mean, perfect example, two things. One, the Kennedy Carter hip check. I don't think many people realize it, but less than 2 minutes after that actually happened, not 2 minutes on the clock in the game, but 2 minutes elapsed time, she was doing a live ESPN interview at the end of the third quarter. Now, at that moment, Caitlin Clark could have laid into everybody. She could have said, I wish I'd punched her in the nose. She didn't. She could have said, you know, any number of things. The nation is watching. It's one of the highest ranked and viewed games of the year. So you got well over 1 million, maybe close to 2 million, whatever that end up being, watching this moment. They're hanging on every word of Caitlin Clark. And she could have just laid into everyone. She could have lambasted the referees. How in the world did they not kick out, you know, Kennedy Carter? They didn't even look. Didn't even look at the play because it was less than 2 minutes. She's doing the end of the quarter interview. And she just says, as calmly as possible, no PR, no time for a press person to come in and whisper in her ear, like some people must think happens all the time with Caitlin Clark. I don't think it does. I sure didn't see it. She just says, that's not a basketball play, but we'll move on. And then she started talking about the team's defense. How lucky the WNBA is that was Caitlin Clark. That's how she handles herself, because she could have literally taken down the referees. She could have taken down the Chicago Sky with her words, and so many people loving her fans, people care about her. That's what fans do. That's not a surprise. I don't know why so many people in the WNBA are shocked about fans loving a player. That's called fandom. Seen it in the NFL, seen it in golf. It's just amazing to me how the WNBA, whoever these people are, either the players or the media or whoever, gets so angry about some of this stuff. And I go into all that in the book and on her game. And but yeah, so the way she handled it was incredible. And how lucky and I say this in the book, how lucky the WNBA is that it's Caitlin Clark with that demeanor and that personality. 22 years old, as I said, going on 40 or 50. I have never seen anything like it.
So I'm just curious what you think is the best way that maybe the league can leverage this new star power, this new audience they have, to continue to improve the league and improve the treatment and conditions for players.
First of all, whoever it is that is having trouble acknowledging the importance of Caitlin Clark needs to acknowledge the importance of Caitlin Clark. She is the economic rocket fuel of the league. And you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to listen to me. Let's look at the numbers. Let's just look at the facts. When Caitlin Clark was injured the first time and missed 5 games earlier in the season, the reporting, factual reporting from several news organizations is obvious, and it's crystal clear that when she was gone, more than half of the TV viewership of the WNBA, the entire league, not just the Fever, more than half of the viewership disappeared. We have never, ever seen any figure, any statistic like that in the history of sports. Tiger Woods, if he was injured, missed a major, it dropped a little bit. I looked this up at various numbers, but let's say 5 to 10%. Sometimes it didn't change at all. Again, depending on the tournament and what people watched and who else was in the lead, Roy McIlroy or Phil Mickelson or whatever. Michael Jordan, when he was gone, again, a little bit of a percentage drop. And in some cases, not much at all. Caitlin Clark gone, more than half of the TV audience for the WNBA disappeared with her. That is cataclysmic for the future of the WNBA. Obviously, everyone wants her to be healthy. The WNBA, the players, should be rooting and cheering and crossing their fingers. Now, that doesn't mean you're not covering her and guarding her and playing her tough. And if you foul her fairly, if there's a foul that happens in the course of play. No, of course you do that, because Caitlin Clark can give it out as good as she can take it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the cheap shots, the Kennedy Carter last year, the Marina Mabrey, absolutely ridiculous. She was like a freight train coming in and just plowing into Caitlin Clark. How lucky Marina Mabrey is for her financial future, frankly, and of all her teammates, that Caitlin Clark wasn't injured right then and there. Because anytime Caitlin Clark's not on the court, there goes more than half of your TV audience, which means there goes your negotiating power. There goes at least some of it. There goes some of your salary, your future salary. This is basic stuff. And how on earth this continues to be a point of conversation. Again, tough, play hard. Caitlin Clark wants that. She is not a victim. She knows how to handle herself. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cheap shots where you should absolutely kick the person out. Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, after she watched the fiasco of those referees keeping Marina Mabrey in the game, should have had an announcement the next day that not only was that upgraded and she should have been kicked out, but I'm going to kick her out for a game or two, suspend her for a game or two, just to make this point loud and clear. Didn't do it. Why not? Why not? Certainly in the book, I write all about their anger with me for asking a question and a follow-up that I would ask any man, any male athlete. I have hundreds of them, hundreds of questions, tougher than even that. Are the players saying that the women can't handle the same questions that male athletes get? Is that their point? It's time to look at this and say, what kind of league do you want? And where are you going with this? And it may be upsetting, and it's too bad that it didn't happen for Cheryl Swoops and Diana Taurasi and Maya Moore and so many other players who deserve to be household names, where people were talking about them in the produce section at the grocery store, the way they're talking about Caitlin Clark, and not just in Iowa, but around the country. But it didn't happen. It should have, but it didn't. Racism plays a factor, you bet. In our society, 74% Black league, you bet. Let's acknowledge it and say it. And here's Caitlin Clark, a white woman. Is that playing a part in this? Again, in our racially polarized world, sure, I'm sure it is. But facts are the facts and numbers are the numbers. And all those players who deserve the attention that they never got are finally getting it. That spotlight that's shining on Caitlin Clark also shines on them. And don't take my word for it. Look at the All-Star voting. Asia Wilson, 90-some thousand 2 years ago, well into the hundreds of thousands this year. And of course, 2 years ago, Caitlin Clark was not in the league and was not eligible to be voted on. Caitlin Clark is the rising tide that lifts all boats. And that's the CBA, collective bargaining agreement. That's every part of this. And it's a really interesting moment for the league to see what they want and what they can handle. But she is it. And it's not my opinion. It is, facts are funny. Numbers are funny. They're there. They're real. They're true. And that's what we saw with that incredible statistic about losing more than half the audience when she was out, the TV audience. And that's a reality. And that can be devastating for the collective bargaining for the players.